A very good afternoon to all my dear students as well as to my listeners. Today we are going to discuss about the principle of caveat. Before starting with the same, I just want to recapitulate what we have done in my last class. In my last lecture or class, we have dealt with the various definitions given in the section 2 clause 1 of the CPC, section 2 of the CPC, and thereafter we have discussed about the concept of foreign code, foreign judgment, res sub judice, and doctrine of res judicata. And also have discussed about the various stages of filing a civil suit. These include our plaint, and the plaint has to be accompanied with an affidavit, and if the same is admitted by the court, then that plaint would be converted into a civil suit, and after becoming the civil suit, it is the duty of the court to hear the party who has filed the plaint regarding its admission. And if the court admits the plaint, thereafter the matter would be fixed for issuing summons to the other side, and once summons has been issued to the other side, thereby to call the other party to file its reply, and that reply is known as written statement, meaning thereby after summons it is the duty of the defendant to file the reply to the plaint of the plaintiff, and that document is known as written statement. Though it is his duty and his right also, but he may waive this right to file its reply. Thereafter, thereafter the court has two options: either it may pronounce judgment with regard to the facts mentioned in the plaint, or it may fix the matter for framing of issue. And framing of issue means the court has to go into the pleadings filed by the parties, and thereafter search the disputed question of facts between the parties, and on these disputed questions of facts and law, both the plaintiff and the defendant may be called to lead their evidences thereon, and this stage is known as plaintiff evidence stage or the defendant evidence stage, as the case may be. And this stage includes examination in chief, cross examination, and if at the request and the same is allowed by the court, then it may give another opportunity of re-examination of witness at their request. Once this stage is over, the matter would be fixed for oral arguments or written arguments. Once the matter is fixed for oral arguments and written arguments, thereafter, after hearing both the parties, the court may pronounce the judgment. And judgment as well as decree thereon. After this, the decree holder may go for the execution of that decree, or the judgment debtor may go for an appeal against the said order or decree, as the case may be. But as you all are aware, the limitation period for filing an appeal as well as execution are different and varies from case to case. Therefore, any party who is having any apprehension for filing any case against him or her, then they may give the notice to the court not to pronounce any order or judgment against him without giving an opportunity of being heard to that side. So this principle is known as principle of caveat, and that is the topic of our today's lecture, that is caveat. Now I will straight away come to this topic. Caveat has not been defined in the CPC. It is derived from a Latin word which means be aware. The similar word has also been used in another law, and that law is known as Indian Partnership Act 1932, wherein under section 16(1)(6) of the said act, the principle of caveat emptor is laid down, which means let the buyer be aware. So the caveat under this law and under the Partnership Act has similar resemblance with each other, and that is known as the interplay between the Code of Civil Procedure as well as the Partnership Act. Now, as I have already apprised you, this is not defined. So now we have to take some help from some other person. So Mr. Sir Earl Joviat, in the Dictionary of English Law, where in 1977, volume 1, page number 298, he has defined caveat as it is an entry made in the books of the offices of registry or court to prevent a certain step being taken without proper notice to the person entering the caveat. Meaning thereby, a caveat is a caution or the warning given by a party to the court not to take any action or grant any relief to the applicant without notice being given to the party lodging the caveat. Now, I would like to give you an example. Where does this caveat most commonly filed? So, these are generally filed in the case of testamentary proceedings. What do you mean by testamentary proceedings? Means a proceeding wherein the testator has left behind a will in favor of one of his legal heir or any other person to whom he wants that after his death this property would devolve. So these are these proceedings wherein the testator has left behind a will in favor of one person. That proceedings is known as testamentary proceeding, and this has to be differentiated from non-testamentary proceedings, where there is no such will left behind by the person who has left the property after his death. So, it is a precautionary measure taken against the grant of probate or letter of administration. Section 148A of CPC, it does not define caveat, but it provides the circumstances under which a caveat can be lodged or it can be filed. Now the next question is, what are the objects of caveat? First object is to safeguard the interest of a person against an order that may be passed on an application filed by a party in a suit or proceedings or about to be instituted. Such a person lodging a caveat may not be necessary party to such an application. This section affords an opportunity to such party of being heard before an ex parte order is made. And second is to avoid multiplicity of proceedings. So these are the certain objects for lodging a caveat. Now the question arises, why it is only in the year 1976 the parliament or the legislature includes or inserted this provision pertaining to caveat. So the circumstances is that before 1976, the aggrieved person who is not a party to the application but is an aggrieved by the order passed by the court does not have the remedy. As such, Law Commission recommended to insert the provision in this regard. As such, in 1976, this new provision was added by the Parliament. Now the next question is, what is the nature and scope of caveat? This nature and scope has been explained by the Supreme Court in the case of Ramchandra versus State of Uttar Pradesh, wherein it was held that the civil proceedings mentioned under Section 148 not only includes original proceedings but would also be applicable to suit, appeal, or other proceedings not only under this code but under any other enactments. What do you mean by any other enactment? Under any other enactment under this law means the proceedings initiated under the Indian Succession Act or Hindu Succession Act, as I have already given an example with regard to same, with regard to testamentary proceedings. Now, the next question which is relevant from the point of a law student is, who may file? Answer is, not only the party to the case, but also the aggrieved party who has substantial interest in the case, meaning thereby necessary party, and also to include a proper party as well. So from this, we may infer that not only the necessary party can lodge this caveat in the court, but also the proper party may also lodge the caveat in the court of law. Now, next question is, when can this caveat be filed? Generally, a caveat can be filed after the judgment is pronounced. But in exceptional circumstances, a caveat may be filed before the pronouncement of the judgment. So from this, you may infer that the general rule is that caveat can be filed after the pronouncement of the judgment against the party. But in certain exceptional cases, like in the case of testamentary proceedings, it may be filed even before the pronouncement of the judgment. Now the next question is, who are the parties to the caveat? There are three parties to the caveat. Number one, it is the caveator. Number two, it is the applicant, means the person by whom the application or the suit has been filed or is going to be filed or is to be instituted or instituted. And third one is court. So these are the three parties to the caveat. Now next question is, where can caveat does not lie? It can be attracted only in the cases where the caveator is entitled to be heard or before any order is made on the application already filed or proposed to be filed. So it does not lie in this circumstance. Is there any format? Under the CPC, there is no format with regard to the same, but there is an exception to this rule, and that exception is given under section 284, clause 4, schedule 5 of Indian Succession Act, which prescribed a format for lodging a caveat in the court of law. Now the next question is, then how can a caveat be lodged under CPC? A caveat may therefore be filed in the form of a petition, wherein the caveator has to specify the nature of the application which is expected to be made or has to be made, and also his right to appear before the court at the hearing of such application. So this is how the caveat can be lodged under CPC. That is by way of presentation of petition. So this much I have to deal 2 days in my this lecture. Hope you have learned from him. Now I would like to take you to the sequence which I am going to follow, which I am going to take in my next class. And the topic which I am going to deal in my next lecture are, that is, rights and duties of the parties to the caveat, that is caveator, applicant, and of the court. And thereafter we will discuss what is the effect of the failure to hear the caveator by the court. And lastly, what is the time limit of caveat as mentioned under the Code of Civil Procedure. Hope you have a good day ahead. Thank you very much. We'll meet you in my next lecture in a short while. Thanks once again.